All right. First of all, Cody and Renzo is not here. I'm hoping you guys are watching the video lecture. Today's class is user-defined function. We started with that in last class. We did a couple of not couple, 3 or 4 exercises, right? With different user-defined function. To give you a quick overview, we had this motion function, remember, where we had the projectile motion x and y direction. We had the plot, subplot, and everything, right? That's the last thing we did. Before that, what else we did, Ethan? Remember? Motion function, quadratic function we did, right, Ben? Jason, anything else we did in last class? Quadratic motion. Did you do? Did you do a parabola? No, not a polynomial, a polyfunction, right? We did a polyfunction as well, right? So bunch of user-defined function we did. Now my expectation, I mean, first of all, today's class is the second class. As I've said in last class, right? I kind of told you in very clear fashion, like in second class would be from kind of like this week on, not that much new material would be seeing. Most likely would be seeing some of the new examples with the same topic, because the topics I kind of covered in the first class. Okay, so my expectation from you would be in second class asking me question. Okay, and now obviously I don't expect you to start doing the homework here in class. Rather do it on own time and ask me question wherever you are facing issues, right? Like this one is very challenging one, the homework, because the user-defined function is completely new, right? Something completely new that you're facing. Homework wise, and exam is coming soon. Exam you will have to deal with the user-defined function as well, right? And these are tricky stuff, right? As you remember, like, you know, so many things to remember. Let me give you a quick overview or a recap, then I'll talk about the homework or some of the problem, maybe a little bit, okay? Just from my own, and I'll address any questions that you have from your side. Okay, so just to give you an overview, remember, how much you remember. So first of all, the user-defined function needs to be written separately, because remember, a separate .m file. That function name cannot be that function name cannot be started with a capital letter. You guys remember that? Okay. Yeah, I know you guys, some of you had an issue with that, right? Okay, so what else? The name should follow any MATLAB or Octave program name, right? That means it shouldn't have any symbol, it shouldn't have any space, and all sorts of things, right? All right, so now after the name and the separate file, let's focus on the file itself, right? The user-defined function, what to write over there. You guys remember, it should start with function and it should end with end, right? So those are called command. You guys remember what is the difference between a command and a function? Command, as an example, could be hold on, CLC, clear, right? These are called command in MATLAB or Octave, right? But function should have a parenthesis with the argument. All right, so now I said like the command should be like and is a command, right? Function is a command. All right, so that's in the user-defined function. You need to put those first. Okay, and then what you did, remember, you should have an array like a bracket for an output, and based on like whatever number of outputs you have, say like you have 2 outputs, then you should have those 2 variables written inside this bracket or that matrix. Remember, matrix you usually define by a bracket. Remember that? So that's why after the function we should have a bracket and put all the variable names as an output, what we are trying to get output from that user-defined function, equal to the function name itself, right? And inside the parentheses you have the input. You understand the structure? So again, function name, the function, not the function name, function itself, right? Function, then the output in an array equal the function name, and inside the parenthesis the argument. What are the inputs, right? So again, output equal function name input. So inputs are inside the parenthesis. Do you remember that? So that was the protocol. That was the protocol for user-defined function, right? And inside the function, right, you just make sure a few things, like you want to put the semicolon. You don't want to display any outcome or result that happened inside the function in user-defined function. Remember that? So what is the other thing? Like, you know, the variables that you're using on the user-defined function, but does it have anything to do with the main function? No, the main function and user-defined function variable can be completely different. It could be same, doesn't matter. Because the user-defined function itself is a separate entity, right? So those variables can be same. It really doesn't matter at all. But sometimes you may want to keep them same, right? Just to be consistent or for your understanding purpose better, right? Now, any question with the user defined function itself? One final thing is like, can you run the user defined function? You can't. That's another thing. Remember, you can't. I've seen over the time, years, the students try to run user defined function. You can't run it. You can call it. You can call the user defined function in your main.m file, but cannot run it separately. Does it make sense? Okay. Now that's all about user defined function. Now come to the main function, right? The main function, first of all, what you are doing, you are putting the inputs and you are expecting to get the outputs by using the user defined function, right? Right, Ethan? So the inputs, the input could be depending on your function itself. So like you had remember the poly function where you had a third order polynomial, right? So in that case, the input should be x, right? You have like, a function was like, I don't know, 5x cubed plus 3x squared minus 10x plus 20. That's the function, poly function equal to y, right? So your output is just one single output, y. But what is your input in this case? X. So you got to define that x value. That's your job or responsibility in the main function. That's all. And obviously the other thing would be calling that poly function, right? Okay. So those are the two things. Okay. Is there any question? Does it serve you a quick recap of everything that what we did? Any question? It was good, right? Any small thing that you'd like to address? I mean, obviously.
One thing I got is like on the homework.
On the homework, we'll just go back to just one second. Just one final thing I forgot to tell you. It's a plotting. Remember? So when we had the motion function, remember we had like bunch of data, right? Remember in last class we were saying like, okay, you'd like to see them in command window? No, not at all, right? Because there's so many data. I'd like to see them in plotting, right? So now there's so many data, like you don't wanna you don't wanna show them in one figure. I mean, to show them in one figure, then you gotta do the subplot. That's what we did, right? Remember, we reviewed the subplot, like number of row, number of column, number of position, and the position, right? Three things that we put in subplot. That's exactly what happened in the whole last class, right? Now, Jason, yeah, the homework question that you're facing, right? Let's do one thing. Open the homework question itself, right? How about that? And then kind of maybe it could be helpful to everyone, right? Which one that we are trying to solve. Let me go to Canton, right? What is happening here? Bright space, right? Okay, perfect. Programming, content, homeworks. Is this homework number 5?
Yeah, homework 5. It's week 6 for homework 5.
I thought we were dealing with homework number 6. Why is homework 5? Just 1 second. Oh.
7 or 8.
Okay, now I understand. I'm sorry. Homework 6 is like Excel thing. I mean, in Octave, unfortunately, last time we were not able to deal with the Excel import and output. Okay, this year let me try. In MATLAB, we used to deal with that all the time. Okay, these are different functions. So, which problem you are facing?
Well, I'm gonna have trouble with the formulas in general because I've never learned how to use any of these. So
Just pick one problem. Any one. I mean, the second one, the third one is a little tricky though. But the fourth one could be all right. But maybe the first one. There are several options. Obviously, you could choose any of the options. Okay. My suggestion would be do all of them. All right. I do have the solutions for all of them though. But try to solve all of them. That could be a good practice. what is the question? Let me first hear the question.
So I guess, like, I'm having trouble programming them because I don't know how to do the formulas in the first place.
The formula.
I'm kind of, like, I never learned any of these, so I'm kind of trying to teach myself how to use the formula and then also program. I think that's kind of like.
Okay, so the first one is very similar to the one that I did in class. Remember the polyfunction? Something similar. Okay. Just let me try to show you some of the easiest example, right? Easiest, like a straight line equation you're familiar with, like straight line equation, y equal to mx plus c.
Yeah.
Straight line means like, sorry. Straight line means, you see it's a little bit faded. This pen is not that good. See, that's the straight line, right? So if you have x and y here, this y can be written as mx plus c. So this m is the slope. What is the slope? Del y, del x. Then m can be written as del y, del x. Does it ring a bell?
Yeah.
And the c is the intercept, right? Now the intercept depends, right? So if it intersects here, so there is a c here, right? So that's the straight line equation. Okay? And now see, I did write m and c that can be explored, right? Means like the value itself, right? The numerical value. So then you have equation. Instead of y equal to mx plus c, I could have write, okay, y equal to say like 3x plus 5. Can you write it? That could be a straight line equation. Not probably this one, but it could be something different, right? Something like that. Okay. So that's they call the the x is power of 1, right? What if like x is a power of 2, like a quadratic equation? Okay, so let me give you a scenario. Say like x equal to 3x squared plus 5x plus 2. I'm just giving you a random number. Okay, whatever come up in your mind, kind of come up with my mind. So that's the equation of a second order equation. Now it could be a complex one, like the way you are seeing here. It's a third order polynomial, right? So second order polynomial, they usually call that quadratic equation because it does have two solutions, right? Third order polynomial has t to the power 3. I mean, in this way, if I'm going to write that, it would be x to the power 3. Does it make sense?
So that first formula has two different options.
Huh?
Has two different answers.
Oh, this one has two different answers. This is quadratic equation. Yeah, quadratic equation. X squared means x will have two values, right? That's a quadratic equation, right? Remember in last class, we did solve the quadratic equation. Remember the quadratic equation solution? Like, you know, y equal to minus b plus minus b squared minus 4ac. And that is not this way. They write it this way. So they write it quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. Then this x1 and x2 can be written as, say, like minus b plus square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And this one can be written as minus b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a, right? So these are the two solutions, and that is one of writing the same thing that I wrote here. Why I'm saying that? Now y could have a value, right? Say like some numerical value. You put that numerical value x, then you try to solve it, right? And then you rewrite this whole thing. Say like I'm saying y equal to 10. I can say that, right? For a certain value of x. And you rearrange this, and you're gonna have something like 3x squared plus 5x plus minus 8 equal to 0. Now you can say this a equal to 3, b equal to 5, and c equal to minus 8. Do you see? And then this become a quadratic equation. We did solve it before, right? You understand what I'm saying? So these are the equations. If you know the equations, you write them in a different function separately, and you call them, and you get the answer in the main function. That's what we did exactly in last class, right? Listen.
Yeah, but I'm saying like, so if you were to put like that 3x squared plus whatever on like a test or something, and then tell me to program like the formulas, I wouldn't be able to because I don't know the formula. You know what I mean?
Now formula will be given to you just like here, the first problem. You are given with this s equal to 12t³ plus 6t squared plus t plus 10, right? So I'm giving you the formula. So what are you going to do? Just like in class, that in last class that we wrote the quadratic equation, should be, or the Pauli equation. We did write a Pauli equation, remember that? Similarly, you're going to write a Pauli equation. On the Pauli equation, you just have to exactly write that equation it's given to you. Just the way we did in last class. You understand? And then in the main function, you got just exactly the way we did in last class. This main function, you got to call it to get the answer of the value of the s.
Okay, so like if you were to code it, it'd be like you call it like for example poly.
Exactly, you can call poly,
So
and then write
you
that.
like that.
If you type that, just the way we did in last class, right? We did type the poly function. Remember that? Just the same way, exactly same way. It's not like you have to come up with the equation by yourself. Equation will be given to you. In the programming class, you are just doing your part is typing that equation that is given to you. Okay.
So you just write the function. You could also, this one says you call it dynamics. So if you call that one dynamics, and you just call that equation, and then you just generate the plots. That's all. That's it. You just have to generate the plots.
If it says generating a plot, I mean, I forgot long time ago. I put this question. Okay, yeah, now I understand. So it says here, okay, quickly. First of all, it says here the time matrix. It says 0 to 10, right, with the interval of select 1, right? So you want to define that in the main function, right?
It's just 0, colon 1.
Yeah, the colon 1, or ignore 1 if there is the interval of 1. If it's the interval of 1, 1, then 1 colon 1, 0, 1, then colon, then 10, right?
Yeah.
So that's the t, right? Remember, Jason? So that's the t function. So that's what you are defining, like what, like in the main function. Okay, and then that's your input as well. So you write the poly function as you with this function, with this equation, right? And on that function, you wanna put an input, right? T, and the main function on the user defined state, you put an input as a t, right? And you write the equation, right? Anybody see? Okay, so you see what I'm saying? So on the main function, right? On the main function, you want to call that poly function, that the function that we wrote with the equation. And now remember, in the main function, you got to give the input. That input is the t. In the main function, you did define the t, right? And then in the parentheses, when you're calling the function of poly, we'll just put the t as input in the parentheses, right? It's at the parentheses.
So you just say t.
Yeah, if it's just one function. For this one, it's just one, right?
Yeah.
For the second one, it's not one. It could be so many input, right? Second one, you could have like a number of here is the input, right? The x value could be input. It depends, right? Like in motion. Remember, Jason? In motion, how many inputs you had? You had like so many, right? But you didn't use all of them. You had like x0, initial position, y0, initial position, right? v0, initial velocity, then the t, right? Even the t0, initial time. You didn't use all of them, you just use the t. Remember, Ethan? You could have used all four of them, right? The reason you didn't have to use any of them, because all values are 0. Like the initial x was 0, initial y is 0, initial t was 0. So you didn't have to use initial t was 0 as well. So you didn't have to use any of them. Initial t was 0? I forgot, maybe. No, if it was not that, probably we would plug the value, and the t is a t matrix that we would probably use that t matrix, right? I think initial velocity was 0.
A lot of them too.
Yeah, so that's why you didn't have to use it. But what if you had those values? Then I mean, it's not a difficult problem. It's the same problem. We just have to put in the user defined function. We just have to put the actual equation with those initial values, which we didn't put it, right? Because we didn't have it. Okay. This one is the most trickiest one. Before the midterm, I would say this is the most challenging one, the most trickiest one. You should be reviewing it several times, like the class notes, and reviewing the homework as well, and asking question about anything and everything. I can go back again, showing it to you, but I bet you have the class lecture with you, right? All the functions, you keep looking into it, ask me question. Try to understand 100%. Ask me any question in the homework or the practice.
So like on like the first option up there, would it be like T matrix would be like 0
Colon. And depending on the interval, say like you want to go with part 1, then part 1 colon 10.
Well, would it be 0 point? That doesn't specify.
It doesn't specify, that's your choice. So if you're gonna go with like one interval, then you can just put 0 colon 10.
Yeah.
And it's one interval. It doesn't matter really. Open the practice one. Practice one doesn't have so many things as well. Any question in this, Ethan? Ethan probably done with the homework, so he doesn't have any question. Right, Ethan? Yeah, almost done?
I'll let you decide that.
Alright, the practice, right? So the practice problem.
I had mine and I had the matrix, and it was I just forgot to put a decimal in there, so it was going by like.
That's what it was, was a decimal,
It was just
so
there was like a blip. Over like 5,000, and I was like.
So let excuse me, sorry. So let me read through the first one, okay? So it says, given the following mathematical function, create an octave functions to evaluate them for a range of x value from 0 to increment of 0.1 to 10. Okay, this time you see, you don't have a way around to just call it 0, 0 colon 10. You have an interval. So plot each on a separate figures to verify the functions. Make sure to give each function a meaningful name associated with what it represents. Okay, each function needs to be in its own file. So there are how many is a different function you got to do for the first problem? 3 of them, right? Each function.
Oh, yeah, well.
Yeah. So for the first problem, you have to create these 3. So now first one, what would be the user-defined function? Is this like, name them accordingly, like so it makes some sense. The first one, what would you like to put? It's a sine function, maybe.
Submit like 13 files.
That's what it says. And it's a practice. I mean, really, just for your reference, okay? Really, I don't focus too much on the practice, okay? The practice 3 points that I gave, supposed to, you should like try your best, and as long as I'm seeing a good try, I'm giving it 3 out of 3. That's what the practice is for. The homework, however,
Practice.
yeah.
Definitely helps. I like being able to see the answers if I know I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And and as I'm saying, like from my side, grade-wise, that you don't have to worry too much on the practice side, because practice is for your practice. I'd like to see you are doing the practice, so I can give you the 3 out of 3, right? That's like a class performance, right? You understand? That's equivalent to something like that. Anyway, moving back to here. So I was saying, like, for the first one, what was the function? What's the function name you'd like to give? Sine function. The second one could be poly. The third one could be exponential. Or you can say, I really don't care. You can. There's a problem. So you can actually call the first problem as one function as well. So like problem 1. In that case, the output will be 3 output. Remember how to get those 3 output? You got to put the function as a function, as a command, right? And then a bracket, and then 3 output. Maybe A, B, C, or I don't know, something like that.
We did that with quadratic.
We did it on a quadratic. Similarly, okay, Jason, we did it in quadratic. We had 2 outputs. Remember that in quadratic, x1 and x2. So, right?
We like answer 1
Yeah.
and answer 2.
Answer 1, answer 2, answer 3, right? We can do it. If we like, you said. I mean, as I said, like I don't put too much of attention here. All I do like to see practice that you did try, you did give a good try on it, okay? And try to put a comment as well. And then in that way you can avoid, like, making separate files for each of them. But bottom line here, you see, if you have answer 1, answer 2, and answer 3, it's very simple equations. All you gotta do is just write answer 1 equal sine x square. In this case, you're gonna put that x is inside this parenthesis. Remember the function, then
So
the
actually
bracket
that would
output.
be your argument.
As the argument, that's what I'm saying.
Your main code you're gonna define that.
Main code you're going to define that. Okay, that's another issue or error that I have noticed over the years. The students try to define the variable numeric value inside the user-defined function. Whatever the function you are writing for this equation, they start to put the values of. You don't do that,
Yeah.
as Jason mentioned.
You define x as
Define the x as a variable itself inside the parentheses, like other user-defined function. Then write the equation only, not defining x anything. The definition part of the x value is in your main code.
Yeah, which is the 0, 5 plus 1 by 10.
Yep, exactly. So here's one catch that I would like to emphasize here. You see that x is a what is the x? X is a matrix, right? So anytime you have a power, you make sure you put a dot before the power sign. Remember?
Oh,
Yeah, so that's why you may do mistake and you may struggle. It may not work. Okay? You do that, remember that. Anything else you'd like to address? I mean, the third question is pretty much like a bunch of equations that was given here, right? It's just pretty much the same thing, right? And there is a different function. So you got to do a lot of practice on that. Okay? You understand? There are so many problems here. You got to do a lot of practice because next week my so next week is week 7, right? Next week, most likely, I'd like to do the exam on next week Thursday, week from today. Okay? The reason is the last topic is the Excel import thing. Octave doesn't work on that. Okay, I tried several last 2 years. I'm teaching Octave. Before I used to teach MATLAB here. MATLAB it did work, right? But I'll still show it to you. I'll see if I can figure it out a way around for Octave. I didn't dig that much on that aspect before because MATLAB does have that option. But I want to still show you. Remember what I was saying, like, you got to import the data from the Excel, right? So you can work with that. Everything else will work, but importing that thing for whatever reason it is not working, maybe you have to purchase something or download something, right? Which we haven't figured it out yet. That's what I'm saying, like in next class probably I'm going to quickly show you and do discussion of the review of something.
Yeah, what's the format of like the midterm? Is it like multiple choice? Is it like a
Yeah.
test, or is it like
Yeah.
like one of these, like we're doing problems and stuff like that?
Yeah, so let me clarify that. So first of all, it does have some multiple choice question, like around 35.
Is that like gonna be on paper?
You can do it. I'm going to give you the paper.
Oh.
You can do it on the paper, or I excuse me. Over the years, sometimes students write it on the tutorial file as a comment. That's it. Instead of giving me the paper. I mean, they did different things. Some of you put the answer on the paper. Some of you do that. I don't care. Really, I never had this much small class. This is probably the smallest one. Never had 5 students. So this pretty much any way you wanna go. It's like I'm teaching you guys in my office room. So that way today I only have 3 students here, probably missing. So.
Yeah, because I was just asking because I didn't know, like, is it gonna be like?
And then the next is scope.
Yeah, is the multiple?
70% scope.
Is the multiple choice gonna be like just like naming, like what is that gonna be? Naming functions, or are we gonna be like solving that?
You might have to solve something in computer. Command line in the command window. You may have to write a small thing.
Okay, and then put it on the paper.
And the result, there are multiple choice. Obviously, you got to choose the right answer and then.
Okay.
And then obviously you'll have some short question after this multiple choice, and then you have a one big question. And you have like 2 hours. I never had students issue to it like time is not enough because it's 2 hours. As long as you are good, I mean there's. I can talk more on the next class midterm, but as long as you're good with like this homework number 5, practice 5, you shouldn't have that much of issue.
Is this gonna be on the test?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So, are
You just have to do a lot of practice.
are you more worried about doing the math, or are you more worried about doing the?
Definitely the math.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because what I'm understanding is the midterms are going to be not majorly, at least, focused on the math part. It's going to be majorly focused on executing the functions, doing
That is given to you.
Right. Just
There is
doing
no
what
math.
you're told to do.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that. Computer will gonna do it for you. You just need to know how to write it in the computer, so computer do it for you. As an example here, so you have to define how to put the value of the x from 0 to 10 with interval of 0.1, and you have to define this function where the math will be done in user different function. You have to define how to define the function in user different function, and then call it, and then if you're gonna do the calculation, you're gonna display the results in the plotting. You have done the plotting as well, right? So this chapter would be a troublesome thing for you in exam. That's what I'm saying, like put your attention, make sure you know how to deal with this practice and the homework by yourself for sure, right? And then same time, I don't want to emphasize I don't want to demerit the other chapters, like the matrix was one of the difficult one as well, I remember, right? So we are having issues on that matrix chapter. The plotting was like the subplot was one of the difficult things. Remember, we had like so many details on the plotting that we learned, right? Like the color change, font size, font name, oh, so many things we did, right? The levels, title, everything, right? And hold on, how to put multiple plots in one function, sorry, one figure, and how to do multiple figures and stuff like that. So many things we did. I mean, if you just think about it, like in a quiet mind, you just think like so many things you already do. Okay, so have to review of it. Yeah, I don't want to hold up any further here. If you're valuable time, unless you have any question with the homework on the practice. I did try to show to you at least whatever I think like appropriate.
That definitely helped a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there any chance we can get for like Friday to do homework?
You can do Friday. I don't care. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's
fine.
okay.